Okay. Hi, everyone. We are having a chat today with Nicole Brebner. Did I say that right, Nicole?
Yes, you
Brebner?
did.
All
Yeah.
right. She's the editorial director at MIRA Books. Okay, wait, I'm trying to read your bio. Here we go. She's been with Harlequin for over 15 years, working on everything from men's action adventure to mystery, as well as working for the overseas division. Nicole now leads a team of editors on the MIRA imprint and publishes best-selling commercial fiction and exciting new voices that appeals to readers everywhere. That is quite the little resume. Pretty awesome.
It's been fun.
I love it. So for everyone that's joining us for the first time, Lindsay and I are going to kind of ask a few questions to kick this off. You guys go ahead and start typing out. Oh, I'm getting feedback. Whoa.
Oh my gosh, that's the craziest feedback ever.
That's the first time I've ever had that happen. It was my feedback on the YouTube. I had the mute on. Our tech guy always says we have to turn that off, and I'm always like, why do we have to turn it off? Now I know. Anyway, so we'll ask Nicole some questions, and then we'll dive in y'all's questions. But go ahead and start asking them. So, Lindsay, you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
You go ahead. You're in the zone.
Okay. Yeah, apparently I'm in the zone. So Nicole, most of these are easy. So
Okay.
And now after I said that, I'm going to throw some really
hard
Okay. Have you ever asked an author, and a lot of these will be about character because our theme box for December, or a theme for our box in December was character. So, but we'll jump all over the place.
Okay.
Have you ever asked an author to cut a character out of their manuscript completely?
Definitely. That's something that happens fairly often. I think, a lot of writers can get caught up in a lot of subplots. And when an editor goes in and looks at it, they realize that you're just distracting people. You're not actually giving them any information, or that character isn't helping drive the action forward. So sometimes the easiest solution is just to cut that character out completely if they're not really adding anything to the story.
Sure. Love it.
Authors don't like that. They don't want to kill off their children, but sometimes that is the best thing for the book, and that is what the editor's job is to recognize those things and guide the writer through that.
Love it.
I'm going to piggyback on that one and ask, well, first of all, hi from the Harlequin family. But I want to ask, have you ever been reading a book and it's in third person or first person or whatever it's in, and you just know that it feels off, but the whole manuscript is done, and you've asked the author, look, you're going to have to completely swap this to a different.
I've never gotten to a situation where a manuscript has been done and asked anybody to do that. I think, if we got a submission where you feel like the point of view is off, you might say to the person submitting that, I really don't think this point of view works, and maybe you want to think about trying a different point of view. But no, I've never asked anybody to go and completely change it, because I work hand in hand with my authors right from the beginning. So they know. I've had an author try that herself and then send it to me saying, I'm not sure if this is working. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked it through and agreed that she needed to change that. But she knew herself she was struggling to get it in that point of view, and it just wasn't taking her where she wanted to go. So it's a very collaborative effort. And I think, writers know when it's a struggle and it's not working naturally.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know that you're okay with unreliable narrators. Hello, Hunting Annabelle.
Yes.
What's your stance on unlikable characters as narrators? I almost have another question. I'll just go ahead and piggyback on that. Would you ever take on a manuscript where it was told from almost a true villain's perspective?
I would, if it was a true villain, but there is some redeeming quality, then
Sure.
Yes, that can actually be really interesting, because you can get some real insight into that mind and what motivates people. But there has to be a level of charm or appeal or desire to know what makes this person tick because the reader wants to be invested in what they're doing, and you don't want somebody who turns people off, and they're not going to read the book if that's the case. So there has to be some kind of appeal there. You might not like that person, but you might be okay with not liking that person.
It's a great answer. I love that.
Did you have a second portion to that, Tori?
Oh,
or was
no,
that
I feel like I kind of lumped them together at the same time.
Oh, okay.
I want to ask, should we do one more for me and then open it up to?
Yeah, because we have a ton. Yeah, we do.
I want to know if you've ever done a revise and resubmit. I've seen that happening a little bit more frequently right now with agent submissions. So I'm just interested if you've ever run into that before.
Definitely. We've definitely done that. I think, the way publishing is working these days, I mean, you really want to have a complete manuscript that that you can sell to your acquisition team, to your sales force, to anybody who's going to be working on it. And sometimes we'll get something in and that there is something really strong there, but it's not ready to go to the acquisition team. And, just with the time constraints on editors these days, you can't devote the time to working with an author on a book that you haven't actually acquired. But often we will give recommendations on things that we think are working and not working, and then suggest that they revise and resubmit. And honestly, the editors who are doing that are really hoping that the author will take their instructions and turn in a stronger manuscript, because they do believe in that author's talent and really do want to be able to buy it. And we actually, I have a couple of editors on my team who have recently acquired manuscripts that they requested a revise and resubmit, and it came back strong enough to buy.
That's great.
I love that. So exciting.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to jump into some subscriber questions. I love this one from Dana Cody. She said, when choosing what to publish, would you rather work with a standalone novel or one that is the first of a series? I know that's hard, but I'm going to make you commit to one or the other.
That is really hard, but I would say standalone is easier. It's easier to sell to everybody because there's less risk. If you're trying to buy something that either is leaving people with a cliffhanger, or attempting to have somebody buy multiple books from you, you might be in trouble there. It's it's a risk. It's a risk to buy multiple books unless it's a tried and true author. So there are lots of series that have great success, but you can really break out with a standalone in a way that is much more difficult with a series of books.
Nice.
Here's one from Maria Fox that I love. It says, "Hi, Nicole. Thanks for this opportunity. Do you find it's common that the first book an author sells is not the first book that they've written?"
Actually, Maria, that's a really great question. And I would bet that, yes, that it's usually not the first book that they've written, because it takes a lot of practice to really get a strong manuscript that's ready to be published. So I think, and I think you learn a lot by going out, even with something that doesn't get picked up. You learn what people are looking for, what's working in the market, and then people then are able to hone what they're writing, or pick up a new project. So, certainly we've bought first novels from people, but I the other thing I don't know is how honest people are when they say whether or not it really is the first book they've ever written.
That's true. So Emma Winters asked something, and I'm going to kind of revise it for you. It says, for someone that has no prior published works, is there anything I can include with my query letter to include my chances of getting picked up? So Emma, that's probably a question a lot of people have. Usually if you're approaching like a major publisher, you'll get a literary agent first. So I'm going to tweak that question a little bit, Nicole, and ask, is there anything when you're seeing like a debut work from that an agent is pitching you in their initial pitch letter that really makes you sit up and say, oh my gosh, I've got to get this manuscript now and start reading?
I think that what you can do to really help is have a really succinct and compelling elevator pitch, and by that I mean like one line that sums up what your book is. So, is it Gone Girl meets Crazy Rich Asians? Like there's a spin on something, but something that tells
I want to read that book.
Yeah. Something that tells people right away, I know what this is, and something that shows that you know who your audience is, because it's really important. That's what your publisher has to do, is they need to find the audience for that book. And if you're clear on that right from the get-go, it just makes everybody's job easier as they're trying to sell the book. So I think, not having published anything before is not going to hurt you if you've got a really great project, but it's really being able to position it and say, this book will appeal to fans of this type of book, but not that it's exactly like it. You want that fresh spin on something that's selling well. I mean, that's really how you want to position your book.
Yeah.
I feel like you could talk about this next question for days on end.
Okay.
Do it. Talk about it for days. For days and days.
It's from Rachel B, and it's, how do you fix a flat character?
Oh.
I warned you.
Yeah, yes, I guess it depends. I mean, you really want your characters to have some depth and some emotion, and whether it's, anger or humor or, whatever makes sense for the editorial that you're writing. But I think you need to, that character really needs to come to life. So you have to have, you have to know who that character is, and you don't have to put every detail on the page, but you have to really be able to get a sense of who this person is, and whether it's the way they speak or some of their actions that give you some insight into what type of person this might be. You have to craft that really carefully. But if the character is really flat, you also have to ask, is this character bringing anything to this story, or is this the character that you don't need? How are they driving the action forward? It's something that's really critical for each of your characters, that they have some value to the story. So if you're finding that they're flat, what do they need to be doing? Why are they even there in the book?
That's great. I have a question. I'm going to piggyback on that one with one of my own. We always hear that your characters need flaws. If they're like too perfect, then, they can fall flat and be uninteresting. How do you know where the line is of giving a character too many flaws where they almost become unlikable and you no longer a cheerleader for them? It's got to be like a difficult balance of keeping them just flawed enough to where they're human and interesting, but not so flawed where you kind of start almost hoping that they're going to die somewhere in the book.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting question, because, finding that balance is the challenge, and it has to be your characters have to be people that readers either can relate to or really are interested in getting to know. So if they're too flawed, I think you lose the reader's interest, because they think, why would I care about this person, or what redeeming qualities are there to this person? But yes, you're right. The perfection you get that same reaction. People don't enjoy reading about perfect people. They want to see, you want to know, is your character somebody people are going to root for to succeed, or are they going to be watching for when they have their downfall, and then balance it against what's going to happen to that character? So, that is a really fine balance, but it's really about creating a character that people can relate to in some way. But that's what editors are also for. I mean, again, you're somebody or reading groups, or somebody with fresh eyes reading it, who could say, maybe it's a little over the top, or, I don't understand what I'm supposed to be feeling about this character. And you can get a sense of that from people, reading it fresh.
I love that you said there could be a character where you're waiting for their downfall. That's just so interesting. That's really cool.
Well, I think that's something that lots of people, you get some satisfaction when you see somebody get their just desserts. So it's yeah.
I like that.
Here is one from Matthew Glickman. What is the most common mistake you encounter when working with new authors?
I would say the most common mistake is thinking that your editor is not on your team. You know, your editor is your biggest champion, and your editor is the person who is trying to help you create the best book possible. So I think, you know, you need to understand that, you know, we're trained and we know what can help strengthen a book, and you can have conversations, and you can disagree with your editor and then explain why, and, you know, sort of fight it out. I've had lots of those conversations with authors, but you need to listen to criticism and be able to understand that it's not meant to hurt you, it's meant to help you. You know, and a good editor is certainly going to do it in a way that shouldn't be painful to you, but you have to be open to hearing other people's ideas.
I love that you brought that up, because I remember, and I think Tori probably will too, the first couple of book deals that I had, every time I would open up an edit letter, I would cry and just feel crushed. And like, my editor hates me. Why did they buy this book? But now, you know, we open those letters up and we're ready for like almost the mental beating that we're about to get. But we love it because we know, you know, that you really are trying to make the book better.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I do have an author who is a, you know, #1 New York Times bestselling author, and who's written, you know, over 50 novels. And she will say to me, when it's time to have the conversation, she'll say to me, before you tell me what you don't like, please tell me what you do like.
Yes, the compliment sandwich.
Soften the blow a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Lindsay, you lumped me in with that. We're totally fine with revision letter out. And I'm like thinking, no, I still definitely cry. After 9 books of working with editors, I definitely still mostly am like, why did you buy my book? Why do you hate me so much? But then you get over it and you totally understand that they are the book's biggest champion, and they're just trying to make it even better because they love it.
Exactly.
They love it the same way you do.
Yeah.
Okay, so Debbie, she's actually been querying agents for a cozy mystery and a standalone psych thriller. She asked, does it count against her that she's already published with an indie publisher? I know a lot of people have that question.
I don't think it counts against you at all. I think, you know, each project stands on its own merit, and, you know, in many ways that can help that you have some experience there, because it's going to show that you understand a little bit about the publishing world, and the fact that you're coming to a traditional publisher, you're looking for something specific from them. So no, I think in the early days there was a little bit of discomfort with that, but not anymore. I mean, it's very, very common these days. And really, if you're coming with an audience already, you know, half the battle is there. But it definitely would not count against you these days.
Awesome.
Do you have any just, I guess, overall advice for newer writers that are just starting out?
I think it's probably the advice that everybody gives to new writers, and that's read a lot, read what's out there, read what's selling, see what you like about it, what you don't like about it. But be true to yourself too, because really the best books are coming from people's hearts. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but it really is true. It has to be the project that you're passionate about, because you're going to put your heart and soul into this. So, you want to be writing something that you really believe strongly in, but you also do need to be aware it's a business, and you need to look at what's out there on the bookshelves these days, what's on the bestseller list, what are people really gravitating towards, and is there a hole that you can fill, or do you see something that somebody's done and you have a better version of it? You know, there are opportunities there, but I also caution people not to jump on bandwagons, because publishing is a slow process, and often whatever is trending now, by the time your book is going to be published, it's, you know, that trend might be over. So that's why I say be true to what you want to write, because, you know, things cycle through, but good writing is always going to be, have an audience.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Absolutely.
Josh asks, do you have any helpful advice for writing synopsis? How much of the plot should you include? And Josh, I totally want to jump in and say that the first time that I wrote a synopsis that I didn't give away everything that happened in the book was one of the first books that never got purchased by an editor. So maybe a lot. What do you say, Nicole?
Yeah, I guess it depends on what the type of book is, but I mean, you really do, you're trying to sell this to somebody, so they need to know that they don't have to read the whole book to understand what's going to happen. I mean, they're going to read the whole book if they're interested in it to see how the writing holds up. But if you've got a really compelling synopsis that says this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and has the highlights of it, I think you have to do that. I know I find when we're talking about books at acquisition, sometimes the editor who's pitching it doesn't want to tell anybody what happened at the end because they don't want to give it away. But then everybody's like, well, you need to tell me because I need to know whether I want, whether this is something I think is going to work for us or not. So so you are kind of giving spoilers, but the people who are buying the books are used to that. So that's okay.
Sure.
And if you're working on a synopsis currently, please know that you're not alone in hating your life.
Oh my God. It's like the
every author feel like hates you, right?
Yeah. It never gets easier either. It's the worst.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is really challenging. And I also think you need to be careful not to make it too long either, because people are reading a lot of submissions and a lot of query letters, and you want to make sure you keep their attention. So, you don't want it to be pages and pages because, you don't know how long somebody's going to stay with it. So you really want to have a really, like I said, with that elevator pitch, if you've got that really compelling elevator pitch to start with, you're going to draw people in immediately. And then if you can have a really tight synopsis, then you're doing really well.
Nicole, just to jump in, I know, Lindsay, you're going next, but if you have a double space synopsis, what do you feel like is the sweet spot for how long it should be?
That's a good question. I would say kind of want to say like 3 to 5 pages, really. Like
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's good.
And I think it really depends on how it reads too. I mean, if it really is you going, it can be a little bit longer, but if you're struggling to just fill the pages, then shorter would be better.
Yeah, that's good.
When an agent sends you a submission package that has the synopsis in it, do you actually read those?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
At what point in the process do you go through reading that? Do you like to start with pages, or do you go straight to the synopsis? Like, what's your process for reading through a submission?
That's a good question, Linz.
Yeah, I personally, and I think a lot of editors, I do read the synopsis. If I feel like it's going quickly and I get it right off the bat, I might skip over the synopsis and go right into the pages, because really it's about how you execute. The you can have a great synopsis, but then the writing isn't strong enough. So it's kind of a combination, because it really depends on, if I get that elevator pitch and I'm like, okay, I know what this is, I might skip the synopsis and just start into the pages. But if the synopsis is really compelling, then I'll read that. So it's really it's different for every project. And it also depends on, is this meeting a need? Like, am I looking for something and I know right away this is something that I think I want on my list, this type of editorial, then I'll probably just jump straight into the pages to see how the writing is.
Interesting.
What do you feel like is I know we talked about first-time authors, so stop me if we already did this one, because I've been digging through questions, but what is one of the worst habits you see in first-time author manuscripts?
I think overly flowery language, like over explaining things, and too much, sometimes and the pacing. I think the pacing can be a real struggle for first time writers to get that pacing right. And you can have, you can start off with a bang and then you just sort of peter out and then, you know, finish with a bang. It's like, but you need the middle part to keep people in there. So, yeah, I think that's a challenge for all authors, but I think for new authors, it's really hard to get that pacing right. And, but yes, I mean, a lot of flowery language or too many characters introduced all at once, so you can't follow what's happening. You don't have to dump everything in right at the beginning; like you can build over time. So, you know, I think that's something that I see a lot of with beginners.
Love it, Lindsay. You want to ask one more, and I'll ask one more, and we can wrap.
Yeah. So we've actually got a lot of subscribers that are writers, but they also want to be editors. So where would you suggest if they want to start getting into the industry and they want to be an editor, what's a good starting point?
That's a great question. And I think, you know, a lot of editors probably at one point thought maybe they would be a writer and then realized how hard writing is. So, you know, I know a lot of people who feel that way. And, I think, you know, if loving to read and understanding the structure of books and you know, the flow of words is something that we're all totally passionate about. But I mean, there are courses there, you know, if you really want to do it, you sign up and you take the courses, and you know, there are publishing programs all over that you can sign up for, you know, at colleges and universities, and getting the technical skills. Like you have to build those technical skills in order to be able to become an editor. And I know a lot of people start off in publishing in the low level jobs and work their way up. That's what most of us do, but you have to come in with those technical skills, because you can't, it's not something that you're trained in once you're in the position. You get more and more practice as you go, but you need to take the courses, the editing courses, to have that background before you can jump into doing it as a job.
And then the last question is from McKenna Kelso, I believe. It says, how many main characters make a book dynamic without clogging the narrative too much? Like just too many voices, too much going on. And that's kind of a tough question, but I've always kind of wondered. She goes on to say some books have 7 or more characters, where others will tend to focus on 1 or 2. Do you feel like there's kind of a sweet spot, or at least like a line where you're like, if you start having 12 main characters in your novel, you've gone too far?
Yeah, that's a lot to follow. And, you know, I think you'll see that when people are writing connected editorial. So anybody who's writing a series of books, they may have that many characters, but they don't all take the forefront in every book. So, but I think, you know, 3 to 4 is probably your sweet spot. I mean, two is can be quite common, but that's really intense. So it has to be, those characters have to be incredibly strong, but they need foils. So it, you know, so I'd say 3, 4, 5, you're in a pretty good position. And you can have secondary characters who, you know, can help drive things along. But when you're getting up to the point where you're following 6 or more people, you're asking a lot. You're asking, you know, and that's a lot of characters to try and be giving very specific details to distinguish them from each other. So, yeah, I say 4-ish, I guess.
I like it. Very committal. I like that. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much. This was another fantastic chat. Thanks, Scribblers, for coming and listening. This chat will be live for another 60 days after this. And Nicole, thank you so much for joining us. You were fantastic. What should we call you? Yes.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's been really fun. You promised me it would be fun, and you were right.
Yeah. Right? All right. Thanks, Nicole. Everyone, have a good evening.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.